You hear it all the time, right? People talk about someone growing or having grown up. Maybe they've matured or even evolved.
Yeah, it's one of those phrases we use. It sounds good, feels comforting, suggests some kind of psychological development has happened.
Exactly. But it's also pretty vague. What does that actually mean inside someone's head? What specific things are we developing? And maybe more importantly, what do we need to, let go of to make space for that growth?
That really is the core question, because we sometimes think psychological growth is like, well, physical growth, automatic, something that just happens over time.
But it's not, is it?
Not really.
Mm.
It seems to be a much more deliberate, sometimes kind of relentless process.
Mm.
Often involves dismantling old habits, old ways of seeing things.
So our goal today, our mission for this deep dive, is to maybe peel back some layers, look at the hard truth, maybe the uncomfortable truth, of what real growth is about.
Right. It's less about adding new skills and more about stopping the use of old, unhelpful ones. And crucially, thinking about how we might train ourselves to, well, to speed that up a bit.
Okay, so let's start with the main obstacle. If growth is about shedding things,
Yeah.
what's the number one habit we need to ditch?
Well, fundamentally, it seems to be about stopping ourselves from responding to what's happening now through lenses that are often unconsciously distorted by our past.
Well, personal history.
Exactly. That's the bedrock of the issue. You walk into what seems like a simple situation, and maybe a disagreement with your partner or some feedback from your boss. You're not just bringing your adult self to that moment. You're also dragging this invisible weight, all the unresolved stuff, experiences of feeling lonely or scared or betrayed, maybe humiliated from way back.
Right, so like if a colleague doesn't answer an email quickly,
Yeah,
the part of you that felt ignored as a kid doesn't just remember feeling ignored. That feeling, that ghost, sort of dictates the reaction now.
precisely. You might leap straight to thinking the worst, that it was deliberate, malicious, or proof that they don't value you. Unwarranted suspicion, basically.
And these aren't just faint memories, are they? They're like active filters.
Highly effective
Yeah.
filters, yeah. Operating incredibly fast, usually before we even realize it. They make us prejudge things, heap suspicion where it's not deserved. Or, and this is critical, they can make us actively aggravate a conflict.
How so?
Because sometimes the familiar drama of the past, even though it was painful, feels kind of safer than the uncertainty of trying something new, like staying calm. So we end up fighting the person in front of us using weapons we actually forged against people from long ago.
Okay, that makes sense. But then how do you know? How can you tell if you're seeing the situation clearly or you're looking through one of those distorted lenses? How do you check that assumption of bad intent?
Well, that's a big part of what growth is. A sign of someone who's genuinely grown is that they can step back and look more fairly at the situation and the person involved right now.
Okay.
They start to recognize the extent to which they might be bringing the heat, that maybe they're the ones making things worse, wrecking their own chances for connection because of these buried assumptions.
So it's like the center of gravity shifts.
It-
Instead of automatically assuming the other person is at fault.
Right. You start entertaining other possibilities. Maybe their mistake was just a mistake, an innocent oversight. Maybe, just maybe, it's actually your turn to offer a small, genuine apology first.
Or maybe you just completely misunderstood what they meant in the first place.
Exactly. That ability to pause, to check that first defensive, unhelpful reaction and reach for a more objective, maybe more complicated explanation, that's incredibly liberating.
It sounds like it takes the pressure off needing to be right all the time.
It does. You stop needing certainty that someone else is wrong, and you start considering the, well, humbler and frankly more useful idea that you might have just misinterpreted the whole thing.
And it feels like that ability, that hard-won skill of looking more fairly, leads straight into the next stage, which requires a different kind of courage.
A really profound kind, yeah. Intellectual and emotional courage. The courage to ask totally new kinds of questions about yourself. Questions that really challenge the foundations of how you usually operate.
The source material calls them Copernican questions, which I love.
It's a great analogy, isn't it? Because Copernicus wasn't just tweaking the map. He was flipping the whole model, saying the Earth isn't the center.
Right.
And these questions do the same thing emotionally. They demand you rethink your own place in the order of things, taking yourself, your pain, your usual defenses out of the absolute center.
Which sounds terrifying because our ego likes being the center.
Right?
It wants to believe we're the fixed point and everyone else is causing our problems.
Absolutely. It feels safer that way. So what are some of these really challenging questions? The kind that signal real psychological growth.
Yeah, give us some examples.
Okay, well, they often challenge our most ingrained protective strategies, like this one. What if I were repeatedly defending myself against closeness and hope?
Wow. Defending against hope.
Think about it. If you've been badly hurt, letting yourself feel hopeful, letting yourself get close to someone, that feels incredibly risky. It's vulnerable. So maybe unconsciously, you push connection away just to feel safe from potential disappointment.
That reframes so much behavior. You assume someone's distant because they don't want connection, but maybe they're defending against wanting it too much.
Precisely. Or consider this one. What if I was using busyness to block encounters with my own mind?
Oof. That hits home for a lot of people, I bet.
Right. It takes a socially acceptable habit, being productive, always on the go, and reframes it as possibly a defense mechanism, a way to avoid sitting quietly and dealing with those ghosts we were talking about.
And the relationship ones are particularly sharp, aren't they? They force you to look at your deepest fears, like, what if I secretly maneuvered to end a relationship prematurely because feelings of isolation and rejection felt safer than true intimacy?
Yeah, that suggests active, maybe subconscious self-sabotage, running back to the familiar pain of being alone because letting someone truly in feels too dangerous.
It's a bleak thought, but probably true for some.
And one more. What if I was running away from opportunities to show myself authentically to others, basically hiding the real you? So developing this Copernican courage means willingly stepping away from that safe, familiar self-story and admitting you might be the one undermining your own happiness.
Okay, but here's where it gets tricky, almost paradoxical. To ask those kinds of questions, to really sit with the answers, you have to give up something society tells us is vital.
Which is,
Rigid confidence.
yeah.
That feeling of absolute certainty.
Yeah.
It seems the more you grow, the more you have to let go of that.
That's the big trade-off, isn't it? We equate confidence with knowing everything, having all the answers. But real growth seems to demand the opposite. A newfound skepticism about your own takes, a kind of patient modesty.
And maybe even a sense of humor about it.
Yes, a humorous readiness to just wryly admit when you've got it wrong or acknowledge your own fragility. It's not about beating yourself up or being weak. It's more like an intellectual commitment to being accurate rather than just feeling secure.
So what does that actually look like day to day? How does this grown mindset show up in conversations or when things get tense?
Well, people operating this way tend to have a vivid, conscious sense of how much they don't understand in any given situation. They pause more, they react less, process more.
They recognize their own patterns.
Yes, they start to appreciate their own history, maybe their fear of intimacy or even joy, and see it as a pattern of avoidance, not necessarily a reflection of reality right now.
And crucially, they get more comfortable not having an immediate answer.
Exactly. They become more willing to say that simple, powerful phrase, whether it's in a meeting or an argument, I don't know.
Which takes guts.
It really does. Or even better, let me perhaps think more about that. That signals real humility. It shows they value a considered response over just projecting authority instantly. They refuse to give a quick verdict just to look competent.
And then, sometimes, maybe on really good days,
On really special occasions, yeah, when the ego's quieted down, they can genuinely offer that ultimate compliment. You know what? I think you may have a point.
and that shift must change relationships, right?
Fundamentally, the grown person becomes more open to friendships, partnerships, built not on shared success or certainty, but on a mutual recognition of vulnerability, shared anxiety even. They trade that constant need for competence for something more like authenticity.
But, and this is the hard part we need to face, this kind of deep shift doesn't usually happen just because we read a book or decide one morning we want to be better. There's often a catalyst.
An uncomfortable one, usually. The source material is pretty blunt about this. What almost always sparks real growth is pain. Growth is often a response to being shattered in some way.
Why? Why does it seem to take being broken down first? Why can't we just rationally decide to change?
It's a good question. Maybe it's because only when our usual defenses are completely overwhelmed by distress can we look at the hard truth without automatically finding an escape route. The pain basically forces the old, unhelpful operating system to crash.
You see that so clearly in some of the examples. Like, you grow because you got fired. And only then, when you're already feeling devastated, can you actually hear what colleagues might have found difficult about you for years. The defensiveness, the ego.
There's shattering forces, a kind of self-inventory that maybe years of performance reviews couldn't achieve.
Right. Or the intense pain of a major breakup. And finally, maybe you're weeping in an airport lounge somewhere, defenses totally down.
And you finally see it, that maybe you were too guarded or too demanding or too scared to really sustain that love. The breakdown forces the breakthrough because living with that level of ongoing pain feels worse than facing the difficult truth.
And maybe the ultimate catalyst is realizing you actually need other people.
Yes, growing because you hit a point of desperate need, a health crisis, maybe financial trouble, and you realize you just can't do it alone anymore. And for the first time, you truly understand what friendship or partnership could actually be for, what real reliance means.
So, in a way, pain is like the admission ticket. It gets you through the door to clarity.
It seems that way. So, if growth is built on this foundation of painful, courageous honesty, what's the ultimate sign that it's actually happening, that the process is working?
Maybe the biggest sign of maturity, ironically, is being able to calmly accept the sheer scale of your own
Silliness.
silliness. Yeah, just how many basic things you're still learning, how much of a child you still are in really important areas of life.
And someone who's really grown doesn't find that offensive.
Not at all, apparently.
Wow.
They can stoically accept the idea that, yeah, on some pretty major things, they've often been, well, a bit of an idiot.
And that's not an insult, it's just a statement of fact about being human.
Exactly. An undeniable part of the condition.
And accepting that isn't about giving up.
No, quite the opposite. It's the ultimate commitment. It's not wallowing in regret. It's an intense dedication to trying to be, rather less of an idiot in the precious time you have left.
A shift from constant self-defense to ongoing, honest self-correction.
Precisely.
So what does this all boil down to for you, listening right now? What's the actionable takeaway?
Well, the challenge is this. Start considering which of your immediate reactions, maybe to a frustration today, or a conflict this week, might actually be an echo, a distortion from some old history you haven't fully processed.
So before you react next time, pause.
Just pause. Try to find that Copernican courage we talked about. Ask yourself one of those tough questions about your own role in the situation.
Are you maybe defending against closeness? Running from being authentic? Or just seeing ghosts?
Because real growth seems to start the moment you're willing to question the center of your own universe.